We are going to talk about Barcelona's 2-1 loss to Celta de Vigo today, but this match review is all about the Barça Femení and their dominant 4-0 victory over the Chelsea women, winning the first Champions League trophy in their history, the first for Luis Cortés, the first for Alexia Putellas, and the rest. So we are going to talk about mainly the Femení match, the 4-0 win over Chelsea women. But first, let's start with the men who did play against Celta, did lose 2-1. With these lineups, I was curious to see, as this basically being the second tryout, and probably next week against Eibar will be the third tryout, for what Griezmann, Messi, and Dembélé looked like in this 3-5-2 together. And I felt like this was, again, that second audition. But nevertheless, Dembélé out on that right wing, I thought was really, really important in the first 10 to 15 minutes of that match as Barcelona established the step forward in that match. This match ends with Barcelona's 2.11 expected goals in this game. Meanwhile, for Celta de Vigo, 0.63. No surprises there for anybody who watched the match. Griezmann, I thought, was combining well with Alba and Messi. It's why Barcelona should have been up 1-0 probably earlier in this match than they did. Pedri's defensive job in the first half, also want to mention that as a positive, taking the ball right off Iago Aspas, and I thought doing a really good job marking him when Aspas would try to drop deep, and him, Busquets, and Ies Moriba, I thought, were communicating and coordinating that press quite well with Frenkie de Jong out with that yellow card suspension. The first goal comes through Busquets to Messi, something we've seen a million times before. Busquets to Messi over the top. And I have to mention, too, in this first half, that whether it's Busquets, whether it's Messi, they knew that with Edu getting scratched just before this match started in the warm-up, that if you're a guy wearing number 40 on your back, then Messi and Busquets are going to target you. So Carlos Dominguez Caceres, a difficult first half for the young player for Celta de Vigo. Again, having to jump in for Edu as a late scratch. Keeps Messi onside and lets him in behind. So the twofer for the young center back, and Busquets to Messi, that was all she wrote for the first goal. And Messi's 30th of the season. And that's pretty much where the bright spots end, right? 32nd minute, Pedri to Messi, just behind him on the pass, could have been goal number 2. And then here comes Celta de Vigo. The 1-1, Mina, not so great here. The shot past Ter Stegen, who was completely rooted. Sure, Piqué probably blocked his line of sight. It's also a terrific cross from Iago Aspas, so I do want to give some credit there to the talisman for Celta de Vigo. And Santi Mina, I think whether Ter Stegen and Piqué were expecting him to take another touch to set himself up for a better shot. Instead, he almost flat-foots it through the laces, and that kind of knuckled ball past Ter Stegen. That said, Ter Stegen can't be beat flat-footed like that, and Piqué has got to do a better job blocking that. Even if he hasn't put your body in front of it and it's a handball, I mean, you can live with that instead of that ball easily getting into the back of the net past Ter Stegen. So now that makes it 1-1. And the players had already mentioned that it didn't really matter there. I mean, that the rest of the season doesn't really matter. Whether they won or lost this match, they're probably going to get third place in the table no matter what. Everybody knew that. And so at least Ronald Koeman made the fans happy. Riqui Puig getting the start in the second half. Unfortunately, he was pretty quiet. And also, I have to mention, too, for Celta de Vigo, Coudet, who've led Celta de Vigo now to 5 consecutive wins. The first time that Celta de Vigo, the Galician side, have won 5 straight consecutive since 2001. It's been a long time since they've been in form. And trying to almost take a neutral perspective here, I'm happy to see Celta de Vigo, who with Deportivo A Coruña down in the 3rd division, to see a side from Galicia able to stand up and finally look good after 2 seasons. That being Celta, being in the relegation fight. You could tell they had something to fight for, and that was kind of Barcelona's problem, right? That even though they're rooted, that being Celta, in 8th place, just missing out on Europa League action next year, they still played like they had something to play for in that second half, while Barca just felt like, hey, 3rd place, we'll get there no matter what. 64th minute, Piqué looks like he picked up a knock, so Dest comes on for him, changing the formation to a 4-3-3, and Celta immediately go right at Dest. So in the way that Busquets and Messi were going at Carlos Dominguez, who was much better in that second half, it should be mentioned as well. Aaron Martin, the longtime Espanyol left back, he's only 24, as Espanyol win the 2nd division, but he got better in that second half too. Was able to keep Dembélé a bit more in check, if you could say that. 70th minute, Braithwaite and Tricao coming on for Griezmann and Dembélé, with the match still at 1-1. And then immediately with those changes, Santi Mina, Denis Suarez, Solari getting forward, and Ter Stegen has to stop it on a Denis Suarez shot. And I'm not sure what it was, but when those substitutes came on for Barca between the 65th and the 71st minute, the match went from 2nd gear all the way down to 3rd gear. And that was too much for Barca, because the 83rd minute, the second yellow for Langley means it's a red. 86th minute, Pianis comes on for Ies Moriba, and that was all she wrote at that point. Even though it was just 1-1, 89th minute, brace for Santi Mina. That's 12 goals for him. The Galician man, who just like Denis Suarez, did return back to the club to try to keep them up in the 1st division, and he did just that. On the winning goal, Solari hitting the post and Mina on the rebound. Alba not closing down the cross/shot, whatever you want to call it. And that means it's in the back of the net against Barcelona. So they take the 2-1, and I guess they had plenty of time to prepare their tweets in case the Femení won. Because just a half an hour later after that match ended, the Barça Femení, I don't think they watched that Celta de Vigo match at all. They were preparing for their warm-up, and they were preparing to do Barcelona proud today. 39 seconds in, Lucky Martins makes the run, Graham Hansen puts it back in, and the own goal off the post. You have to make your own luck. And in the beginning of a Champions League final, it could not have been a better start. And I think that set and dictated what this match was going to be for Barcelona. I think it took the weight, the pressure off Luis Cortés and company. As I had spoken about with the pressure on this team, since they lost 4-1 to Lyon now 2 seasons ago in the 2019 Champions League final, every moment, you could see it, every match, every Champions League match, there was so much pressure, there was so much intensity in everything they did because they knew the Champions League, that was the expectation. That was what they wanted. That was their goal now for 2 seasons. And when that first goal goes in, even though it's an own goal, it doesn't matter. That weight has been lifted, that they know that they can now play in this match. I mean, obviously this match would have went entirely differently if that ball doesn't go in. It's unlucky for the very, very, very talented German midfielder in the pulse. But the 12th minute, Alexia on the turn, Graham Hansen gets by Carter, and Jessica Carter just didn't have an answer for Graham Hansen on that right flank today, that being Barca's right flank. And then Hermoso, Graham Hansen gets into the number 7, and she is fouled by La Pulse. So for La Pulse, an own goal within the first 13 minutes of the game, an own goal, also fouling Hermoso, sending Alexia Putellas, the captain, to the penalty spot. She finishes with Mariana, who usually takes them on the bench. That means Barca's up 2-0 within the first 14 minutes of this match. 20th minute, Jenny on the press. Alexia bypasses Jenny with a pass, finds Aitana Bonmati. Aitana, you're woman of the match for this one. 23 years old and already an MVP in the Champions League final. Aitana is only going to get better, you'd expect from here. Her partnership this year with Alexia Putellas and Patri in the middle of the field. There's a reason why a lot of those veterans were pushed to the bench and Hamraoui instead starts this game. And as much as it's all about Barcelona putting up the 4, Hamraoui protecting that back line was vital in this match against that deadly, deadly Chelsea women attack. We're going to get to that in a second because the 4th goal, 36th minute, Aitana to Martins to Graham Hansen. Once again, Lucky Martins getting loose on the left side. So as much as Graham Hansen terrorized Carter on the right side, Charles, the 21-year-old who had come over from Liverpool, had her hands full as well with Lucky Martins. For these Chelsea women, it's probably going to be a learning experience. They do have some experience up top, but it's still a relatively young squad, all things considered. And for Barca's youth, so many of this team were the ones that lost that Champions League final, with the very exceptions of Jenny Hermoso coming back to Barca after trips to PSG and Atletico Madrid, as well as Graham Hansen, who came over from Wolfsburg, having lost 2 Champions League finals of her own. So for Barca, I think they really needed this. They needed to have lost before to be in this position in a way that I think moving forward, this Chelsea women's team, they're going to be the one to get the monkey off their back. Fran Kirby is potentially going to win the Ballon d'Or still, even after losing the Champions League final 4-0, because she's been the best player, I think, in Europe all season long. Sam Kerr was the one who was on the ball aplenty, as well as Harder. That said, Fran Kirby barely touched anything. Layla, in that first half, superb job from her. You could argue that she was the woman in the match as well, because Fran Kirby, no matter where she went, it was either Mappy Lyon or Layla who just went with her. And then Mappy would cover that space in behind for Layla. Then you had Patri playing out of position as a center back, who was also doing a superb job on Harder. If you were told Patri, who is, again, still not even just 23 years old, who is still in her early 20s herself, if you had told her she'd be in a Champions League final playing out of position against the most expensive forward and Harder in world football, I mean, I don't know how much confidence Patri would have had, but yes, she played with overwhelming confidence out of position today and kept Harder pretty much at bay. She got her chances. Chelsea had 16 shots near the end of that match. Barca with just 6, but they didn't need any because they got the first 4 to go in. The one, again, being an own goal, didn't even count as a shot on goal. Second half, it was 4-0. Chelsea, they had some pride, so they fought for it. Ji So-yun, much better in midfield for Chelsea. But at that point, everybody knew it was done and dusted. It's a shame for Emma Hayes. Again, I want her still to be, should I say, eventually the first woman to hoist that Champions League trophy. I think she deserves it. Emma Hayes, go read up on her. She's a fantastic story. Again, Fran Kirby, a wonderful year from her. Sam Kerr was good. Harder. You have all those fantastic players for the Chelsea women. But for Barca, they have gotten this far over their depth, over their balance, over the way that they have their young players getting better. I talked about Pedri, I talked about Aitana and Alexia Putellas. And then they have their stars in Jenny Hermoso, in Caroline Graham Hansen, and Lucky Martins. But they also have the core of that team, those Spanish players who've been with Barca for many years and are seeing this project out, winning the Champions League final. 61st minute, Mariana still has yet to get to her best. She's only 25, comes on for Graham Hansen when the game is already done. She's been so important to this team as well up top. And then before the match was over, Luis Cortez didn't play his teenagers and younger players. Instead, he goes with the veterans that have helped get him here and been the rotation and bought in and been those rotation players when they should be starters anywhere else. That's Srna Gorcevic, that's Vicky Losada, the captain, the actual captain. Lexi Putellas is usually the captain because Losada comes off the bench. Aswala as well, the best player that African football has ever seen, and yet she comes off the bench to back up Jenny Hermoso. And then Melanie Serrano, 17 years at Barcelona, did not want to retire until Barcelona were hoisting that Champions League trophy. So many good stories here. I want to talk even more on the podcast tomorrow about this. So we will. I'm going to have actually Omar, who was on the Twitch live stream with. He's going to help me break it down on the podcast tomorrow because we did this game together. So that's it. Just really good feelings. I know the Barca-Celta game was disappointing, but the reason I hope you even clicked on this is because the Barça Femení are champions of Europe. And Barca had their first Champions League trophy of what I hope is many. So I always say Forza Barca, but I'm going to add a little thing before it in Campeones, Forza Barca.